wearing a suit, like you clearly don't belong here. There's ways in which you can get caught, and not only that, just because you get into this part of John Jay, now say you want to go over to Heron Hall, wherever the hell that is. How do you get into that one?
Well, you can actually get in Heron Hall.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the BMW building?
Oh, no.
Yeah, the BMW building, it's across the street and there's a whole bunch of offices and like
Sixth floor.
You sure John Jay?
Yeah, basically every time you want to get into a new part of the system, you have to physically move yourself and go there. How's it different with computers? What's the main way computers, networks, and systems are protected? A firewall. Where is a firewall generally located in like imaginary space where a computer network is? If here's your network, and inside the network is your network connected to everything else it could possibly want to be connected to, where's the firewall? Around the whole outside.
It's securing the perimeter.
It secures the perimeter. Once you get through the firewall, what do you have access to? Everything. That's the major difference with computers. Because it's so connected, once you're inside, you have access to everything. So, for instance, Target the other year had a major credit card hack where large numbers of credit cards were being siphoned off. Basically, what happened was somebody installed software around Thanksgiving on their card readers that every time a card reader was scanned, that number was sent to a database, which then sent that number to somebody. How was this program installed in the keypads? Does anyone know? They got access to the network, and they were able to program these keypads from the inside. How did they get access from the network?
You probably need the firewall. Oh,
I'll give you a clue. What am I pointing at?
A crack in the ceiling?
Here's the thing about computer system. They got access through the company contractor who was in charge of controlling the computerized air conditioning system. The computerized air conditioning system, so that you wouldn't have so most of the air conditioning in big buildings is controlled by computer, so that you don't have somebody who has to shut it off and turn it on every night. It's just set up to automatically turn on and off at certain times. Now, if you are a giant retail company like Target, you probably have a pretty good cybersecurity team because you have a lot of information. You know who doesn't generally have a great cybersecurity team? An air conditioning company. But the air conditioning company needed access to the computer network because for some reason the Target was running on, everything was on a single computer network, including the computerized air conditioning. So to access the air conditioning system, they had to give the contractors the login information. So the contractors, who are in no way trained in cybersecurity, had the information to get into the system. So once somebody got that information from the contractors, they had access not just to the aircon, but to the entire Target computer system. Because once they were in, there were no breaks within the system, because that would have taken time and effort and money, which Target didn't invest in. So what we have here is, unless a system is specifically designed to be clustered off and have walls within it, which is very rare, you get in the system, you can get in through the aircon. If there's a very wealthy person's house, very often a lot of things are computerized. What sorts of things might you find computerized in somebody's house? Lights. The alarm system. The door locks, yeah. There are usually a lot of things now, you unlock and lock the door by an app. Or you control, how many people know what Nest is? It's these little electronic thermostats which are programmable. Also, there are now things like app-based teapots, so you can turn on your electric tea kettle from your bed without having to get off, or a coffee maker. And here's the thing, a company that is in charge of building locks might be safe. But you know who's not spending a lot of time protecting against hacking?
Somebody with a coffee pot.
Yeah, the coffee pot company is not spending a lot of time on cybersecurity. One of the easiest ways to hack into a home Wi-Fi is find somebody with like a smart tea kettle. It's one of the easiest ways to hack into the system. Another one, Bluetooth, is incredibly not very safe. if somebody in the area is using a Bluetooth device, you can very often hack into their device through the Bluetooth.
There is same thing with like the subway. They have subway Wi-Fi system, or like in Starbucks, like one dude, he just plug in all the everything is over there.
Yeah,
like
here's
banking,
another
everything.
thing, is if you ever are doing anything sensitive, banking information,
Never do
email,
it.
never do it on a fully open public Wi-Fi. Because the chances are, there's a new type of attack happening, which are called man-in-the-middle attacks. What is a man in the middle? Well, it's somebody who literally sits in the middle of a network. So every time you talk to the Wi-Fi, here's your computer. Here's your computer. You are talking to the Wi-Fi. That's an F, or a W, I swear. Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi connects to the internet. So, then the internet sends things back to the Wi-Fi, which sends it back to the computer. What happens if I'm sitting here, and I find a way to convince your computer, don't send it to the Wi-Fi, send it to me first. And then I will look at that data, keep what I want, and then send it on to the Wi-Fi. So if you, in this moment, if I'm sitting here monitoring, what sorts of information might I get? If I'm now getting the signal you are sending to the Wi-Fi network, what might you be doing here?
Well, if you're using the Wi-Fi, afterwards you might log into something.
Yeah, say you go on your bank. You now just sent to me to send onto the Wi-Fi network your banking login name and your password. I now have that. Because I'm sitting here. Now, for me to collect this, I need to be in the coffee shop with you, connected through the Wi-Fi. It's actually pretty easy to convince a computer to send to the middle before you go onto the Wi-Fi network. So it's just some technical stuff about convincing like the routing number and things like that. Basically what you do is you send out a signal to these computers and you say, hey, truth is, I'm the Wi-Fi network. And then they send it to you, and then the person who's logging in, do they realize they're being hacked? No, because they're still getting the information. Because once it goes to you, you're just in the middle, you still pass it on to the bank, and then you take the bank information and pass it back. So yeah, here's this major issue, is that also, as long as you are, if somebody were taking your mail or literally taking your information, you'd be able to tell they were there. In this sort of case, you don't know. And they're able to do it just by connecting to the network. And there are other ways of doing it not having to be in the same physical location. But this is the sort of thing that is definitely possible. So yeah, just as a matter of like precaution, first off, just never log on to the New York Transit Wi-Fi that you get in the subway stations. Just don't do it.
The Starbucks too.
Starbucks is another one. Or if you do have to do something in Starbucks, try to not log on to anything in any way sensitive. Keep it to home, keep it to school, things that are password protected. No, I'm saying do personal stuff. You can watch YouTube videos, don't log on to your YouTube because that's connected to your Gmail. But yeah, so basically, these are the sorts of things where if you want to keep yourself safe in this crazy world, these are the things you have to be aware of. All right, so laws of time and space are different. What are other reasons that it's so damn hard to do cybersecurity?
It's not fully developed, like it's a new thing.
Yeah, so because it's new, so part of this is just the technical issues, but also this goes back to what we were talking about a little bit before. All right, say that I start bullying one of you, and I just start being insulting and saying horribly mean things about you and your whole family in class, in front of all your classmates. What would you do about it? Yeah, who would you tell? You go to HR, you go to my department, there's a set protocol. Say somebody breaks into your house and steals your jewelry. Who do you talk to?
Police.
The police. Say you're walking down the street one day, and all of a sudden you see a missile fly by, and it blows up all of Staten Island. Who do you contact?
God.
Gee whiz. Who would you turn to deal with this situation? The government. Here's a question. Your computer system is hacked and you lose information. Your social security number goes. Who do you contact?
Like the bank.
Social Security.
I don't know, because the police would probably be, but the police is not really.
This is exactly the issue. There is no clear protocol. Imagine your bank account gets hacked. If somebody hacks your bank account and steals all of your money, do you contact the police? Probably, but
But you would still have to contact the company.
you have to
first.
contact the bank as well. What happens if it turns out that the people who have stolen the most money in human history as an organization? Who are the biggest, greatest bank robbers in history, carrying off the biggest heists within the past 10 years? North Korean hackers.
Oh, yeah.
One of the main ways in which North Korea, they're hacking banks worldwide, hundreds of millions of dollars being stolen out of banks, especially banks in like South Asia. Like the Bank of Bangladesh had $100 million stolen, like equivalent of 100 million US dollars.
No,
it was
North Korean, and this is something we're going to come back to. North Korea is,
Yeah, with the street.
well, here's the great thing about North Korea is if you work for the government, you have access to that stuff.
Yeah.
And specifically, very often North Korean hackers are set up in countries not in North Korea, but nearby,
Nearby.
working off of networks where you can't actually tell whether they're working for North Korea or not. Because here's the great thing. If you're the United States and you carry out a cyber attack on China and shut down the power supply, what is China going to do?
Again, we got
Shut down our power supply. What if North Korea shuts down our power supply? What do we do to them? Nothing. North Korea doesn't have enough power. There's a literal issue of. There was this interview I heard with like a member of the U.S. government of just like, how do you retaliate? Like, how do you shut down the lights of a country that doesn't have enough power to turn the lights on? So there's this amazing asymmetry, which is North Korea, since Kim Jong-un has taken over, has recognized they are so cyber behind that their hackers can hack without any worries, and they're never going to get extradited back to another country because they're North Korean citizens. So North Korea has become one of the greatest hacking nations around. Their cyber knowledge is incredible. They're top 10 up there these days with U.S., China, Russia, Israel. Yeah, well, and we'll talk about this a lot more next class. But yeah, so here's this thing of just like, if you find out that it's North Korean bank hackers, who the heck do you contact? Do you call up the State Department and be like, hey, they stole my money again, would you please, bomb North Korea? That doesn't make sense. And so these are the sorts of issues, is it's so new, we don't know who to contact. And if you're a company, what do you say when this customer's money gets stolen? You say, sorry, deal with the police. What do the police say? That was in a private bank, it's their job, this is their cyber department. No one takes responsibility because no one's really sure.
A majority of the time, company doesn't like blast it out, like they just keep it themselves.
And here's another thing, if you're a company who gets hacked, what do you typically do about it?
Just give some money and just like keep it shut.
You generally send an email out that says something along the lines of, we are very sorry to report that there's a small chance that some of your personal data may have been taken. Not, we just lost 85 million credit card numbers and social security numbers and you were on the list, which is what they mean. When you see those, that's what it means. It means we just lost all your stuff.
Yeah, with the capital one.
Good luck. So, no clear what's the best way of putting this? How do I have this written? No clear way to decide who is responsible and how. And so here's another issue, and this is just a major difference between computer companies and like the government, is if you are the government, so say Walmart, they just leave the doors unlocked in like a town, and they have a big sign that says our doors are unlocked right now. And then they get robbed and everything in that Walmart store is taken. What are the police gonna say about it? Yeah, you left the doors unlocked. And what if Walmart says, well, you didn't lock them for us? Like, it sounds absurd because it's like, well, of course it's Walmart's job to lock their own doors. It's not like the police are going to come around. But in cyber, it's less clear. If Walmart doesn't have a good security system, it might not be clear, but say Con Ed doesn't have a good security system. What happens if Con Ed's security system isn't good?
Blackout.
Blackout. And once a blackout happens, that's a public issue. Imagine that it's not that New York City's power goes, say New York City's power is cut off on election day. What would happen? It would be chaos. And what if a hacker hacked in and shut down the power to New York City on election day? Whose responsibility is it now? Can the government really just go, Con Ed should have done a better job? On the one hand, it's the same idea. Con Ed is responsible for keeping Con Ed safe. They're a private company. So in the same way that Con Ed's responsible for locking the doors, why don't you just say Con Ed's responsible for their networks? Well, the issue is, if you get in the Con Ed network, it's such a big deal now that should the government get involved? And it seems like on certain sorts of issues, should we be spending tax dollars and government money protecting the cybersecurity of certain private firms? Seems like maybe we should if the firms are a big enough deal. If the power grid is computerized and hacking the power grid can shut off the power, then maybe all of a sudden we do need to decide that no, government organizations need to make these calls.
It kind of reminds me like when you have like crimes that occur on like campuses or like in jail or like in small places, and you're trying to figure out what's the how they should be handled. Like, is it a school matter, or is it like juveniles? Like when they have something when they don't show up to school, do you take them to jail, or do you take them to the
This is a brilliant analogy. It's the same idea where if somebody does something wrong in a certain place where multiple people have jurisdiction, it causes chaos. So there's a problem of, but it's kind of the reverse, because if it's like a police, like imagine there's been a big drug bust in New York City. Everybody wants a piece of it. The FBI wants it so they can get their statistics up. The city cops want it, the state cops want it, everyone wants on board. But now imagine the reverse, which is nobody wants to deal with the problem. Nobody wants to be responsible for it. The government has enough budgetary problems. They don't want to spend money keeping private firms safe. The private firms are trying to make money. They don't want to spend money keeping it safe. So everybody's trying to say, not our problem. But the issue is, like, we're talking about the power supply here. Or we're talking about medicine. Like hospitals. There's a sense in which hospitals are getting attacked by what are ransomware attacks, by the way? This is one which will come up a bit more.
Are they emails that are sent with money?
So the way it works is, you all have files. You all have access to your files. Imagine instead of having your files being like a computer system with some games and some messages and your papers, imagine you're a hospital. So what do you have in your system? People's health insurance, people's medical records, things like, oh, this person's coming in for surgery today. Do they need their left lung or their right lung replaced? Stuff like this is the sort of thing that you have stored. What ransomware does is it encrypts every single file on the network. So what it does is now whoever owns the files cannot access them because the files are encrypted. So it's basically everything that's in there is just changed enough that you can't access it without a secret code to unlock it. And what they do is they say, we'll unlock your files, but first send us $50,000, hospital. If you're a hospital, what can you do about this? You either pay them or you brute force crack the code. So here's the thing about any sort of computer code, is every code can be cracked eventually. What you do is you just try every possible combination. The issue with that is what, if you're a hospital? Time. You know what you can't wait on? Which lung needs to come out. Like if you have someone's medical records and they're in for an emergency heart transplant, you need to get a hold of their records. They're also, how much surgery these days, what are some of the things which are used in surgery? It's not just somebody standing there saying scalpel now. What else is used? If you get your appendix out right now, yeah, there are tiny little cameras which are hooked up to a computer system. Imagine the computer system's down. You've now got surgeons trained to do surgeries with computerized camera help who now are flying blind. and there's no real other option because you can't get back on your computer network. So these are the sorts of issues that come up, and it's like, this is a major public health issue, and yet it's being done by hospitals, which are private companies, which generally are not the most up on their cybersecurity. So there's this major issue of who should deal with this. The government doesn't want to because, if you wanted to say, government, you're in charge of keeping all of this safe, what would happen? What would we need to do as a nation if we wanted to if we said the government is in charge of cybersecurity for all mandatory things like hospitals, electricity companies, and everything else? What would the government need to do?
Take control of all of that?
They'd have to take control, or at least they'd have to get some contractors. What does it take to get contractors? Money. Where's this money coming from? Taxes. If we wanted to implement this, it would be a major tax spike, which generally people aren't a big fan of. A good way of not winning an election is to say we're raising everybody's taxes by 20%. Not a good way of winning an election. Nobody's going to do it. So this is another issue. And then here's the final problem. What's number 4? What is the number 1 weak point in every single computer system?
The password.
And who has the passwords?
People.
The people. Who is interacting with computers to make it all work? Human beings. And what are human beings? Especially human beings who don't have computer expertise. They're imperfect. We are manipulable. We are forgetful. We are imperfect. We are irrational. We are people who have busy lives and a lot on our minds. When you just got broken up with and your mother's sick, are you paying attention to whether when you log onto a web page, are you double checking to make sure that the URL you clicked on matches with what the URL should say? If you are, then you are very cyber secure. If not, you're most people. And the issue is most people are not taking the time to make sure that they are not giving away their information or what they're dealing with is actually keeping it safe. So with these ransomware attacks, what usually happens? How does a ransomware attack get delivered? People know? By an email. You'll get an email sent out to everyone in the company which says something like, hey, we're looking to update our cybersecurity. Can you just log into this web page and put in your username and password? We need to double check.
Spam mails.
Yeah. And so what does somebody who doesn't know how computers work or that this might be a malicious email do?
Open it.
They put in their username and password, and now there's somebody who's like, well, I'm in. And especially if you have an access to like what's the head account in a computer?